What if I told you that the most important words Jesus ever spoke were deliberately hidden from you? What if the path to salvation, the very key to the kingdom of heaven, was not about what you believe, but about what you but no doubt? And what if that knowledge wasn't held in a distant heaven or a sacred institution, but was dormant inside of you right now, waiting to be awakened? Imagine if everything you were taught was only half the story. In 1945, in the windswept deserts of Upper Egypt, near the town of Nag Hammadi, two brothers looking for fertilizer stumbled upon a sealed earthenware jar. Thinking it might contain gold, they broke it open. But what they found was not treasure in the worldly sense. It was a treasure of a different kind, one far more volatile, far more dangerous, and infinitely more valuable. They found a collection of 13 ancient leather-bound books, papyrus codices that had been sealed away for over 1,600 years. And within one of these codices lay a text that began with the electrifying words, "These are the secret sayings that the living Jesus spoke and Didymos Judas Thomas recorded." This was the Gospel of Thomas, a gospel not of narrative, but of pure, unfiltered wisdom. A gospel that was condemned as heresy and ordered to be destroyed by the early church. A gospel that places the power of divinity not in a celestial king, but in the heart of the seeker. The secret it contains is this: the kingdom of God is already here. It is inside of you and all around you. You don't have to wait for it. You don't have to earn it. You only have to open your eyes and recognize it. This is the forbidden truth of the Gospel of Thomas, and it has the power to change everything. To understand the explosive nature of this document, you must first understand what it is not. The Gospel of Thomas contains no story of Jesus' birth in a manger. There are no miracles of walking on water or feeding the 5,000. There is no Last Supper, no betrayal in the garden, no trial before Pilate, no crucifixion, and, most shockingly, no physical resurrection. It is composed solely of 114 sayings, or logia, attributed to Jesus. Some of these sayings are familiar, echoing verses from Matthew and Luke, but others are utterly strange, cryptic, and deeply mystical. They present a Jesus who is not a messianic savior come to die for the sins of the world, but a spiritual guide, a master of esoteric wisdom, whose goal is to awaken the divine spark within each person. He is a teacher of Gnosis, the Greek word for knowledge. Not intellectual knowledge, not the memorization of facts, but a profound, intuitive, experiential knowledge of the divine reality. This is the great schism, the fork in the road where this text diverged from the path that became mainstream Christianity. The early church fathers, like Bishop Athanasius of Alexandria, who in 367 AD sent out his now infamous Easter letter, commanded that such apocryphal and heretical books be destroyed. Why? What was so threatening about this collection of sayings? The threat was simple and total. If you can find God by looking within, if you can achieve salvation through your own spiritual realization, then what need is there for priests, for bishops, for a church hierarchy to mediate between you and the divine? The Gospel of Thomas offered a path of direct access. It rendered the entire institutional structure redundant. It was a declaration of spiritual independence, and for an empire trying to unify itself under a single controllable state religion, such independence was rebellion. So, it was buried. It was hidden in the dark earth, waiting for a time when the world would be ready to hear its message once more. Let us begin our journey into this forbidden text with its most central and paradigm-shattering proclamation, found in saying number 3. Jesus says, "If your leaders say to you, 'Look, the Father's kingdom is in the sky,' then the birds of the sky will precede you. If they say to you, 'It is in the sea,' then the fish will precede you. Rather, the kingdom is within you, and it is outside you." Stop for a moment and truly absorb the weight of these words. This is a direct refutation of a disempowering, externalized theology. For centuries, humanity has been taught to look up to the heavens, to pray to a distant sky, dwelling deity, to wait for a kingdom that will descend upon the earth in some far-off future. Jesus, in the Gospel of Thomas, calls this a profound misdirection. He is saying, If you believe the kingdom is an external place, then even the birds and the fish are closer to it than you are, because they already inhabit those realms. You are looking in the wrong direction. The search must turn inward. The kingdom is within you. This is not a metaphor for a feeling of peace. It is an ontological statement about the nature of reality. It suggests that the divine consciousness, the very fabric of the kingdom, is woven into the fiber of your being. It is your source code. But then he adds the most mystifying part, and it is outside you. How can it be both? This is the collapse of duality. Thomas's Jesus is teaching that the internal reality and the external reality are not separate. The world you perceive is a reflection of your inner state. When you find the kingdom within, you begin to see it everywhere without. The barrier between self and other, between inner world and outer world, dissolves. The universe becomes a mirror. The ancient Hermetic principle, as above, so below, is here reframed as within, so without. And the saying continues, providing the very key to this realization: when you know yourselves, then you will be known, and you will understand that you are children of the living Father. But if you do not know yourselves, then you live in poverty, and you are the poverty. Here is the core of Gnosticism. Salvation is self-knowledge. But what does it mean to know yourselves? This is not about knowing your personality, your likes and dislikes, your social security number. That is the ego, the small self, the mask you wear. To know yourself, in the Gnostic sense, is to know your true nature, your divine origin. It is to journey past the fortress of the ego and discover the silent, luminous consciousness that exists beneath it, the anthropos, the perfect divine human. The text says that when you achieve this gnosis, you will be known. Known by whom? By God, by the universe. It implies a state of cosmic recognition, of coming into alignment with the fundamental reality. You cease to be a stranger in the universe and realize you are an intrinsic, essential part of it. You are not a creature begging for favor from a creator. You are a child of the living Father, implying you share the same life force, the same divine DNA. The alternative is stark. But if you do not know yourselves, then you live in poverty, and you are the poverty. This poverty is not material lack. It is spiritual destitution. It is the state of alienation, of feeling separate, small, and mortal in a vast, indifferent cosmos. It is the suffering that arises from mistaken identity. According to Thomas, most of humanity lives in this state of poverty, not because they are sinful, but because they are asleep. They are ignorant of their true wealth, their inner kingdom. Jesus, in this gospel, is not a judge, but an awakener. His words are designed to jolt us out of this slumber of self-ignorance. The entire message is a call to an archaeological dig into the landscape of your own soul. The kingdom is buried treasure, and you are both the treasure map and the treasure itself. Now let us venture deeper into the labyrinth of these secret sayings to a verse that extends this idea of immanent divinity to the whole of creation. In saying 77, we find one of the most radical and poetic declarations in any spiritual text. Jesus says, "I am the light that is over all things. I am all, from me all came forth, and to me all attained. Split a piece of wood, I am there. Lift up the stone, and you will find me there." In the canonical Gospel of John, Jesus says, "I am the light of the world." This is often interpreted to mean that he, the individual man, is the sole source of spiritual illumination. But here in Thomas, the concept explodes into a radical immanence, a form of panentheism where the divine is not just in everything, but jotitad everything. But everything, when he says, "I am the light that is over all things." The I here is not just Jesus of Nazareth. It is the Christ consciousness, the divine logos, the universal awareness that he has realized within himself, and is telling us we can realize too. I am all. This is the language of the Upanishads, the cry of the enlightened sage who has experienced the oneness of being. From me all came forth, and to me all attained. This is the cosmic cycle of creation and dissolution, emanating from a single unified source and returning to it. This source is not a distant God on a throne. It is the fundamental reality, the I that can be discovered. And then comes the practical instruction, the tangible anchor for this sublime philosophy. Split a piece of wood, I am there. Lift up the stone and you will find me there. This is breathtaking. He is telling his disciples that divinity is not confined to synagogues or temples, to holy days or sacred rituals. It is in the mundane, it is in the raw, physical stuff of the world. The act of a carpenter splitting wood or a laborer lifting a stone becomes a potential gateway to satori, to enlightenment. The divine is hidden in plain sight, concealed by the veil of the ordinary. It challenges us to see the world not as a collection of dead objects, but as a living, breathing manifestation of a single divine consciousness. Imagine the implications. Every object, every person, every atom is saturated with this presence. The world is a holy book written in a language of trees, stones, water and light. The task of the seeker is to learn how to read it. This saying transforms the world from a profane space we must endure while waiting for heaven into the very location of heaven itself. It democratizes the sacred. You don't need a priest to find God. You need a piece of wood. You need a stone. You need the courage to look at the ordinary world and see the extraordinary reality pulsing within it. This is a profound departure from the idea of a fallen, sinful creation from which we need to be rescued. In this Gnostic view, the material world is not a prison, but a classroom. It is a series of symbols and veils that both hide and reveal the divine. The Gnostics were often accused of being world haters, of despising the physical body and the material realm. While some Gnostic sects did hold this view, the Gospel of Thomas presents a more nuanced picture. The problem isn't the wood or the stone. The problem is our perception of it. We see only wood, only stone. We don't see the light, the I, that animates it. The spiritual work is to refine our vision, to cleanse what William Blake called the doors of perception. When we do, we will see everything as it is, infinite. This is not pantheism, the idea that everything goti God. It is panentheism, the idea that God is sat in everything and also transcends everything. The light is in the wood, but the light is also over all things. This preserves the mystery and the majesty of the divine source, while simultaneously making it intimately accessible. What if every moment of your day held this potential? The simple act of washing dishes, of walking down the street, of breathing in and out. What if these were all opportunities to lift the stone and find the hidden presence? This is not a religion of Sunday observance. It is a spirituality of 24/7 awareness. It's a call to find the sacred in the secular, the infinite in the finite. And it is a deeply unsettling message for any power structure that claims to be the sole proprietor of the sacred. If God is under every stone, then you can build your church anywhere, and the high priest is anyone with the eyes to see. Perhaps the most enigmatic and challenging of all the sayings is Logion 22. It is a dense, multi-layered puzzle that contains the Gnostic formula for spiritual integration and the return to the primordial, non-dual state of consciousness. It is the secret of unity. The text reads, Jesus saw infants being suckled. He said to his disciples, "These infants being suckled are like those who enter the kingdom." They said to him, "Shall we then, as children, enter the kingdom?" Jesus said to them, "When you make the two one, and when you make the inside like the outside and the outside like the inside, and the above like the below, and when you make the male and the female one and the same, then you will enter the kingdom." Let's unpack this, piece by piece, for it is a roadmap to the very heart of the Gnostic experience. It begins with the image of suckling infants. In the canonical Gospels, Jesus says, "We must become like little children to enter the kingdom." This is usually interpreted as a call to humility, innocence, and trust. But Thomas's Jesus takes it to a much deeper, more mystical level. The infant at the breast exists in a state of unity. There is no separation between itself and its mother, between its need and the fulfillment of that need. It is a state of pure being, before the mind creates the illusion of a separate self. This is the state of primordial consciousness that the Gnostic seeks to reclaim. It is not about becoming childish, but about returning to a state of wholeness. Then Jesus provides the explicit instructions. The first is to make the two one. This is the fundamental operation of all mystical practice. Our entire experience of reality is governed by duality, good and evil, light and dark, pleasure and pain, self and other. The mind constantly chops reality into opposing pairs. To make the two one is to transcend this dualistic thinking and perceive the underlying unity from which these opposites arise. It is to understand that light and dark are two sides of the same coin, that life and death are part of a single process. The next instruction clarifies this. Make the inside like the outside and the outside like the inside. We've already touched on this with saying 3. It's the dissolution of the boundary between your inner world of thoughts and feelings and the outer world you perceive. It is the realization that your consciousness is not a small thing trapped inside your skull, but a field that encompasses and co-creates the reality you experience. When you find peace inside, the world outside begins to appear peaceful. When you resolve your inner conflicts, the world outside seems less conflicted. You stop being a victim of external circumstances and become a conscious participant in the dance of creation. Then, make the above like the below. This is the famous Hermetic axiom, a cornerstone of all Western esotericism. It means that the macrocosm, the universe, the divine realm, is reflected in the microcosm, the individual human. The patterns of the stars are the patterns in your soul. The laws of creation are the laws of your own consciousness. To understand yourself is to understand the universe, and to understand the universe is to understand yourself. There is no separation. It's a call to see the divine architecture in your own human design. Finally, we arrive at the most potent and controversial part of the formula. When you make the male and the female one and the same, then you will enter the kingdom. For the modern mind, this phrase can be confusing or even offensive, but we must understand it through the lens of Gnostic symbolism. In many ancient philosophical systems, male and female were not just biological categories, they were cosmic principles. The masculine principle was often associated with the spirit, the intellect, the active, the celestial, the rational logos. The feminine principle was associated with the material, the body, the receptive, the earthly, the intuitive Sophia. Our ordinary state of being is one of division, where the spirit is seen as separate from the body, where intellect wars with intuition, where we feel torn between our spiritual aspirations and our earthly desires. To make the male and the female one is the Gnostic equivalent of the sacred marriage, the fontieros gamastot. It is the grand project of integration. It means healing the split between mind and body. It means uniting your rational thought with your deep intuition. It is the alchemical process of joining the sun and the moon within your own soul to create the philosopher's stone, the integrated whole self. It is the union of Jesus, the male, Logos principle with Mary Magdalene, the female, Sophia principle within the temple of your own being. When this inner union is achieved, when all these pairs of opposites, two and one, inside and outside, above and below, male and female, are resolved into a unified, non-dual consciousness, then you will enter the kingdom. You don't go to the kingdom, you don't die and find the kingdom. You generate the kingdom through this profound inner work of unification. The kingdom is a state of consciousness, and this is the recipe for achieving it. It is the most secret and powerful teaching in the entire text, a complete system of psychological and spiritual alchemy condensed into a single verse. Now we must confront the final saying of the Gospel, Logion 1:14, which is by far the most troubling and has been used by critics to dismiss the entire text as misogynistic. It is a verse that, on the surface, seems to contradict the profound message of unity we just explored. The saying goes, Simon Peter said to them, "Let Mary leave us, for women are not worthy of life." Jesus said, "I myself shall lead her in order to make her male, so that she too may become a living spirit resembling you males. For every woman who will make herself male will enter the kingdom of heaven. Reading this literally is, understandably, appalling. It sounds as if Peter is being chauvinistic and Jesus is agreeing with him, stating that women must become men to be saved. This interpretation has led many to discard the gospel. But as a decoder of forbidden knowledge, we must look beneath the surface, especially when a text is steeped in symbolism. Could there be a deeper, hidden meaning here, consistent with the rest of the gospel's message? The key, once again, lies in the symbolic language of Gnosticism. We just established that male and female represent cosmic principles, not just genders. The female principle, as we said, was often associated with the material world, the body and the passions, the kot siki kot. The male principle was associated with the spirit, the intellect and reason, the dotnenuma tot. The Gnostics believed that in our unawakened state we are ruled by the passions of the material world. We are identified with the female principle of materiality, regardless of our physical gender. The spiritual journey for everyone was the process of allowing the spirit, the male principle, to guide and spiritualize the soul and body, the female principle. So when Jesus says he will make her male, he is not talking about a physical transformation. He is using alchemical language to describe the process of spiritual initiation. He is saying he will guide Mary Magdalene, who in Gnostic texts is often portrayed as the disciple who understands Jesus' teachings most deeply, to complete her spiritual journey, to fully integrate her material self with her spiritual self, creating a unified living spirit. Think of it this way: the text says, every tant woman who will make tant herself dot male. It's a universal statement. The soul, in its earthly state, is considered female in this symbolic system. The work is for the soul to turn towards the spirit and become spiritualized. It's the same process of unification described in saying 22. It is not about female inferiority, but about the universal human condition of being trapped in a purely material mode of existence. Jesus is not validating Peter's crude, literalist prejudice. Instead, he is subverting it by lifting the conversation to a higher symbolic level that Peter likely doesn't understand. Peter, representing the exoteric institutional church that would later bear his name, sees only a woman. Jesus, the Gnostic guide, sees a soul on the verge of enlightenment and speaks of the universal process of spiritual integration. He is essentially telling Peter, "You don't get it. This isn't about gender. This is about spiritual alchemy." This saying, far from being a simple case of misogyny, may in fact be a dramatic illustration of the clash between two levels of understanding: the literal, worldly understanding of Peter and the secret, symbolic, spiritual understanding of Jesus and his inner circle, which includes Mary Magdalene as a prime exemplar. It is a final cryptic lesson on the necessity of moving beyond literal interpretations to grasp the hidden truth. The kingdom of heaven is not for literal males. It is for integrated spirits who have unified the